Startup founders raise millions, hire fast, move fast, and still launch products nobody wants. Corporate PMs manage crores in delivery budgets, answer to committees, drown in approvals, and still ship on time. Here's the uncomfortable question nobody in the startup world wants to answer. What does the PM know that the founder doesn't? I'll tell you exactly what. And by the end of this video, you will never approach a product launch the same way again. I have spent 11 years as program and project manager delivering complex infrastructure programs, networks, cloud migrations, cross functional teams of 50 plus people across multiple geographies. I am also building my own personal brand on the side while holding that full time role. I live in both worlds simultaneously, and the gap between them is larger than most founders want to admit. Here's what's actually happening in the startup ecosystem right now. A founder has an idea, they validate it with five friends who says great idea. They build for 6 months, they launch and bold it. Not because the idea was bad, because the launch was structurally broken from week one. No clear success criteria, no risk register, no clear stakeholders alignment, no phased rollout, just vibes and a product hunt submission. And when it fails, the diagnosis is always wrong. We needed more marketing, the timing was off, the market wasn't ready. The market was ready. The launch wasn't. Meanwhile, a corporate PM with a fraction of creative freedom launches with an enterprise product with procurement committees, legal reviews, three layers of sign off, on time, on budget, with measurable outcomes. Not because the corporate world is more innovative, because PM has a launch operating system that the founder never learned. That gap costs founders months of wasted runway every single year, and it's entirely fixable. I am going to break down four things corporate PM do before, during, and after a launch that founders either skip entirely or discover too late. First, how PMs define success before a single line of code is written. Second, how they manage launch risk without killing momentum. Third, how they align stakeholders so the launch doesn't die in an internal meeting. And fourth, the post-launch discipline that turns a one-time launch into a repeatable system. Four things. Let's go. Point number one. PMs define success before they define the product. Here's the first thing a PM does on any program. Before architecture, before timeline, before team structure, they write a success criteria document. Not a vision statement, not a mission statement, a measurable definition of what done looks like. Specific, numeric, time bound. Network uptime about 99.9% within 90 days of go live. That's a success criteria. Not users love the product. Here's the thing most founders miss. When you define success vaguely, every outcome becomes defensible. You can always argue the launch kind of worked, which means you never get sharp signal on what actually failed. PM can't afford that luxury. If the program misses its SLA by 0.1%, that's documented, escalated, and reviewed. The precision is uncomfortable, but it's exactly what creates learning velocity. Action step for you before your next launch. Write three success criteria. Each one must have a number and a deadline. If you can't write them, you don't understand your launch well enough to execute it yet. Point number two. PMs build risk register. Founders build optimism. Every program I have managed has a risk register. It's not a pessimism document, it's a preparedness document. It answers one question: what could go wrong? How likely is it? And what's your response if it does? High likelihood, high impact risk, get mitigation plans built before launch. Low likelihood risk, get contingency plan ready but dormant. The result: when something breaks, and something always will, the team doesn't freeze, they execute the pre-built response. Launch momentum stays intact. Founders don't do this, and I understand why. Risk registers feel corporate, bureaucratic, and anti-startup. But here's the reality. Move fast, break things is a product development philosophy. It was never meant to be a launch philosophy. When you launch without a risk register, you are not moving fast. You are just moving blind. And the first unexpected problem, a supplier delay, a platform outage, a negative review going viral will stop you completely because you have no prepared response. Here's the thing most people miss. Your competitor isn't faster than you because they have more resources. They are faster because when something breaks, they already know what to do next. That's the risk architecture. And it takes 2 hours to build before launch, not 6 weeks of recovery after. Action steps for you. List your top 5 launch risks today. For each one, write one sentence on what you will do if it happens. That's your risk register. Now you're operating at PM level. Stay with me because what's coming next is where most launches actually die. And it has nothing to do with the product. It happens in a conversation or the absence of one. Point number 3. PMs align stakeholders. Founders avoid the conversation. In enterprise delivery, a launch doesn't just need a good product, it needs everyone who can stop the launch to be aligned before it goes live. Procurement, legal, IT security, finance, operations. If any one of those stakeholders is surprised on launch day, the program stops. So PM do something founders find deeply uncomfortable. They have the hard conversations early, not when it's convenient, not after the product is built, before the single resource is committed. Here's what we are building, here's the timeline, here's what we need from you, and here's where we will need your sign off. Any blockers? That conversation surfaces objection when they are cheap to fix, not after 6 months of development when they are expensive. Now translate this to founders' world. Your stakeholders aren't procurement committee. They are your first customers, your suppliers, your co-founder, your platform partner, and the conversation you are avoiding about pricing, about delivery timelines, about what happens if your volume spikes. That conversation is your stakeholders alignment. Every founder who launches and then discovers their supplier can't handle the order volume, or their platform charges fees they didn't account for, or their first customer expected something that product doesn't deliver. That founder avoided a conversation that a PM would have had in week 1. Action step for you. List every person or entity whose corporation you need for your launch to work. Schedule one conversation with each of them before you go live. Not to pitch, to surface blockers. Point number 4. PM launch in phases. Founders pull the pin. No enterprise programs goes from zero to full deployment in one step ever. There is a pilot, a controlled rollout, a phased expansion. Each has an exit criteria, specific conditions that must be met before the next phase activities. Why? Because a phased launch limits the blast radius of failure. If the pilot breaks, 5% of the users are affected, not the 100%. You fix it, you apply learning, you move to the next phase with higher confidence and lower risk. Founders do the opposite. They spend 6 months in stealth, then they launch to everyone simultaneously on a single day. One shot, maximum exposure, maximum risk. And when something breaks, and something always will, the damage is total, not contained. I have watched infrastructure rollouts across multiple geographies, specifically because we control the deployment sequence. Region 1 goes live, stable for 2 weeks, region 2 activates. Any instability in region 2 doesn't touch region 1 because it's already hardened. Your product launch has geographies too. They are called customer segments. Launch to first 10 customers, get a signal, fix what breaks, then launch to 100. That's not timidity, that's operational discipline. Action step for you, identify your phase 1 launch group, the smallest possible audience that gives you real signal. Launch them exclusively. Set 2 week review window. Expand only after exit criteria are met. So here's the mistake I see constantly, and I have almost made it myself. Founders hear structured launch process and immediately think slower launch. That instinct is wrong. It's costing you. A structured launch isn't slower, it's faster to success. An unstructured launch might get to market in week 6, but it spends month 6 through 12 recovering from preventable failures, refunding customers, rebuilding trust, fixing architecture that should have been caught in a pilot. A structured launch might get to market in week 6, but months from 6 to 12 are spent scaling because the foundation held. Speed to market and speed to success are not the same metric. PMs optimize for speed to success. Founders optimize for speed to launch. And that two-word difference explains most of the graveyard. Here's what this all means. Corporate PMs don't have better ideas than founders. They don't have more talent or more ambition. What they have is a launch operating system that most founders never learned because no one told them it applied outside the enterprise. It applies everywhere. Define success before you define the product. Build a risk register before you build confidence. Align stakeholders before you need their cooperation. Launch in phases before you launch to everyone. These aren't bureaucratic constants, they are the reason some launches work and most don't. The founders who grow fastest aren't the ones with the best products. They are the ones who learn to operate like a PM without losing the founder's bias for action. That combination is rare and it's available to anyone willing to borrow the playbook. If you want the full operators framework applied to building a business on the side, then subscribe. Every week, I bring the same discipline I use managing crore level delivery programs to the real problems of launching and scaling a brand. No generic startup advice, no motivational content. Frameworks that hold under pressure. See you next week.